The hospital waiting room smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee, a sterile haze that clung to Ethan Carter's worn-out sneakers. He sat hunched in a plastic chair, his calloused hands fidgeting with the frayed hem of his flannel shirt. At 38, Ethan's face carried lines etched by years of scraping by, first as a widower, then as a single dad to his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. His world revolved around her, every overtime shift at the lumberyard, every skipped meal to afford her soccer cleats. Tonight, though, he wasn't here for Lily. He was here because of a flyer. It had been tagged to the community board at the grocery store, half hidden behind potluck invites and lost pet notices. Urgent, type O negative blood donors needed. Critical condition. St. Mary's Hospital. Ethan didn't know why it stopped him cold in the aisle, clutching a cart of discount cereal and day-old bread. Maybe it was the word urgent, or the way it reminded him of the night he'd lost Sarah, his wife, to a car accident 4 years ago. The hospital hadn't been able to save her. Maybe this was his chance to make sure someone else got to go home. He'd left Lily with his neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, and driven straight to St. Mary's. The nurse barely looked up as she handed him the forms. "You're O negative?" she asked, her voice flat from a long shift. Ethan nodded. "Good. We're desperate. Woman in the ICU, car crash. She's bleeding out faster than we can keep up." Ethan didn't ask questions. He didn't need to know her name or her story. He just rolled up his sleeve, wincing as the needle pierced his skin, and watched his blood flow into the bag. It felt like giving away a piece of himself, but also like reclaiming something, some small control over a world that too often felt cruel. By the time he left, it was past midnight. The nurse handed him a juice box and a cookie, muttering a distracted thanks. Ethan drove home under a starless sky, his arm throbbing, his heart oddly full. He didn't expect to hear anything more about it. He'd done what he could. That was enough. The next morning, Ethan was bleary-eyed, pouring cereal for Lily, when his phone buzzed. An unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something nudged him to answer. "Mr. Carter," a crisp voice said. "This is Claire, assistant to Ms. Eleanor Grayson. She'd like to meet you at St. Mary's this morning. It's important." Ethan frowned, wiping milk off the counter. "Grayson? I don't know any Grayson. Is this about the blood donation?" A pause. "Yes. Please, just come. 10 a.m. sharp." The line went dead. Lily looked up from her cereal, her brown eyes wide. "Are you in trouble, Dad?" Ethan forced a smile. "Nah, kiddo. Just gotta clear something up. You okay with Mrs. Delgado for a bit?" Lily nodded, already distracted by her sketchbook. Ethan kissed her forehead, grabbed his keys, and headed back to the hospital, unease curling in his gut.st. Mary's felt different in daylight, less like a place where hope went a flicker out. Claire, a young woman in a sharp blazer, met him at the entrance. She was all business, her heels clicking as she led him past bustling nurses to a private wing he hadn't noticed last night. The air here was quieter, the walls lined with framed awards and photos of smiling benefactors. Claire stopped at a door marked Private Suite. Inside, a woman sat propped up in a hospital bed, her silver hair neatly braided despite the bandages on her arm and the 4 in her hand. She was maybe 60, with sharp green eyes that seemed to see right through Ethan. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice warm but commanding. "I'm Eleanor Grayson. You saved my life last night." Ethan shifted, uneasy under her gaze. "I just gave blood, ma'am." "Anyone would have." "Not anyone," she cut in. "O negative is rare. And you didn't hesitate, didn't ask for anything. Why?" He shrugged, rubbing the back of his neck. "I lost someone here once. My wife. Couldn't save her. Figured I could help someone else." Eleanor's expression softened, but before she could respond, Claire leaned in and whispered something. Eleanor nodded, then turned back to Ethan. "Do you know who I am?" He shook his head. "No, ma'am. Should I?" Claire spoke up, her tone matter-of-fact. "Ms. Grayson owns this hospital, and half the medical facilities in the state." Ethan froze, his work boots suddenly feeling out of place on the polished floor. "Owns the hospital?" The words didn't compute. He'd given blood to a stranger, not some VIP. I didn't know," he stammered. Eleanor smiled faintly. "Most people don't. I was driving home from a gala when a truck ran a red light. Without your blood, I wouldn't be here." She paused, studying him. "Claire tells me you're a single father. Raising a daughter alone?" Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "Lily. She's 8. Keeps me on my toes." Eleanor's eyes lit up. "I'd like to meet her someday. But first, I want to thank you properly." She gestured to Claire, who handed Ethan an envelope. He opened it, expecting a thank you note, maybe a gift card. Instead, it was a letter, typed on heavy stationery, offering him a full-time maintenance job at St. Mary's, better pay, benefits, and a schedule that would let him be home for Lily's soccer games. Ethan's hands trembled. I can't accept this. I didn't do it for a reward. I know, Eleanor said, her voice firm but kind. That's why I'm offering it. The world needs more people like you, Ethan. People who give without expecting anything back. Let me give this to you, and to Lily. He wanted to argue, to say he didn't need charity. But then he thought of Lily, of the nights he'd stayed up worrying about bills, of the shoes she'd outgrown but still wore because he couldn't afford new ones. This wasn't just about him. It was about her future. That evening, Ethan sat with Lily on their sagging couch, explaining the new job, the hospital, the woman whose life he'd helped save. Lily listened, her sketchbook open to a drawing of a superhero with a red cape. Is that you, Dad? She asked, pointing to the figure. Ethan laughed, pulling her close. Nah, kiddo. I'm just a guy who did a small thing. But sometimes, small things matter. Lily tilted her head. Like how you always help Mrs. Delgado with her groceries? Yeah, he said, his voice thick. Like that. Weeks later, Ethan started his new job, his toolbox now filled with purpose as well as tools. He'd pass Eleanor's office sometimes, catching her eye through the glass, and she'd nod, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond they'd forged in a single act of kindness. He never told Lily the full story, how a stranger's blood had rippled into a new life for them both. But he felt it every day, in the weight lifted from his shoulders, in the way Lily's laughter filled their small apartment. The world didn't change overnight. Ethan still worked hard, still worried about Lily's future. But he carried something new, a belief that one selfless act could spark a chain of hope, touching lives in ways no one could predict. And in a hospital room, under fluorescent lights, he'd proven it.